Affect Autism, 10 years and counting, committed to autism advocacy, empowering you with DIRFloortime. Welcome to the We Chose Play podcast. As we celebrate 10 years of Affect Autism, let's revisit some of our older blog posts, giving them a fresh update. In this episode, you'll hear a renewed version with updated insights and new perspectives. Let's dive in. You're listening to the We Chose Play podcast from Affect Autism, where affect is the number one tool we use in supporting development through playful interactions. Setting appropriate limits and expectations by respecting where your child is at developmentally. July 5th, 2016. A few posts back, we discussed the developmental approach to setting limits. This time, we delve into developmentally appropriate expectations of behavior and also developmentally appropriate limit setting. I was very fortunate to have consulted with Dr. Gil Tippy, who is a clinical psychologist and clinical director of the Rebecca School in Manhattan. Development happens. It unfolds spontaneously like nature does when we provide the appropriate environment. That is, just as we cannot command a plant to grow, nor can we direct our children to develop. By providing a safe, nurturing, warm relationship within which the child can rest, play, and interact with us in moments of shared pleasure, development will occur before our eyes. Quote, "Children are generally happier, less stressed, and make more progress when involved in developmentally appropriate interactions and activities. In fact, these can constitute the most important factors in their growth." Unquote. Page 257 from the book Engaging Autism, Dr. Stanley Greenspan. What parents want for their children. When parents of children with developmental differences see other children achieving milestones that theirs haven't yet, it feels unfair. Often we parents want to teach our children skills so they can reach various milestones. This might include greeting people, reciting the alphabet, counting, and eventually reading, writing, and doing math. Dr. Gil Tippy points out that we all want the same things for our children. Our dreams and goals are the same. From his perspective, the best way to get them there is with DIRFloortime. A few posts back, we discussed how focusing on academic skills does not help our children with the challenges of thinking, relating, and communicating because they'll be relying on their strong memories to get them through these tasks. We shared Dr. Stanley Greenspan discussing that there is a necessary developmental foundation to be attained before our children can thrive in academics. The tipping point. A precursor to what we all want. Dr. Stanley Greenspan felt that a major tipping point in development occurs when the child can get into a continuous back and forth flow of circles of communication and emotional signaling that comes at FEDC4 and beyond, functional emotional developmental capacity in the DIR model. Once a child can be in this continuous flow, they are, quote, cooking. Dr. Gil Tippy says that for him, it is all about the point where children reach the capacity to think in the abstract. The child's ability to be in a continuous flow is a precursor to becoming abstract. They jump off FEDC4 into abstraction at FEDC5. And once a child is abstract, so many things change. Quote, "Once you don't have to run your entire life relying on your memory, things change." Unquote. Dr. Gil Tippy, DIR clinical psychologist. A child who is abstract knows that they are a separate human being from you and that you have thoughts, ideas, and desires that might differ from their own. So for Dr. Tippy, the action is all at FEDC, functional emotional developmental capacity 4 and 5. We can do almost anything to get our children to FEDC 3. But if we don't challenge them to get past there, they won't pass that tipping point into abstraction. In another podcast episode linked to in this blog post, this can sometimes take years. A quick review of functional emotional developmental capacity 4 and 5. The book Engaging Autism describes the 6 foundational functional emotional developmental capacities, or FEDCs, that are precursors to foundational academics. First is self-regulation and interest in the world, FEDC1. Next, engaging and relating, FEDC2. Then, purposeful two-way communication, or intentionality and two-way communication, FEDC3. These first three capacities are not difficult to achieve with most neurodivergent children. FEDCs 4 and 5 are where the most challenging work is that DIRFloortime addresses so well, Dr. Tippie says. At Functional Emotional Developmental Capacity 4, Complex Communication and Shared Problem Solving, we are working on this shared problem solving where we facilitate a child using long chains of back and forth emotional signaling with us to solve a problem. Following their interests, we can use techniques such as playing clueless, playfully, to challenge the child to achieve something they need our help with and are very motivated to do. At FEDC, or Functional Emotional Developmental Capacity 5, we work on symbolic understanding and creating emotional ideas where we help children attach needs and emotions to actions and words. We practice expressing emotions, model emotional expressions, and help children express their emotions. Dramatizing and slowly adding in imaginary elements into familiar play can start to facilitate this capacity. Dr. Gil Tippie often talks about instilling the spirit of inquiry into our children by making them wonder. We want them to wonder what it is that is in mom's head that she's thinking about, or what the parents are discussing in the front seat of the car. We can say things like, I wonder why that man is getting on the bus. I wonder where he's going. Developmentally appropriate expectations and limits for our children. We, parents of children with developmental differences, know how trying meltdowns can be for everybody. It only feels right to be compelled to set limits. But discipline can backfire in serious ways that damage our relationship with our children. Safety and trust are critical to children who depend on us. We need to learn how to set developmentally appropriate limits. Dr. Tippie says that whether or not your child is abstract yet determines everything. The following is true for all children, not just those with developmental differences. The pre-abstract child. Before a child can think in the abstract, it is pointless to focus on behavior. As Dr. Gordon Neufeld argues, here children are simply driven to behave emotionally. A pre-abstract child does not think rationally about behavior, so a rational approach will get you nowhere. Even if a child rationally understands that hitting is wrong, they will not be able to stop their impulses. Dr. Tippie explains that other people can be hurt is a concept that is difficult for kids below FEDC 4 or 5 because it's hard to grasp that you're another human being who might get hurt. Physically stop inappropriate behavior. If your child is hitting, physically move them away from the person they are hitting and calmly say something like, "We don't hit other people," or "You hit me." If they are throwing hard objects, physically stop them by taking the objects away or bringing them into another room while calmly saying something like, "Not for throwing," or "You hurt me." Focus on the connection with your child by looking at the child's motivation behind the behavior and assume all behavior is purposeful. Was the child hitting because they wanted to play but didn't know how to appropriately ask to join in? Was the child trying to have fun and that was the only way they knew how? Show them a more appropriate way. It may take many attempts. Timeout is just punishing. Since the child has no concept of why what they did was inappropriate and is unable to control impulses, timeout is simply a punishment and time alone, when really we should be interacting with the child to support them. The abstract child. Once a child is abstract, so much more is possible. Dr. Tippie explains that after a child is abstract, you can simply raise an eyebrow and show disapproval, and a child gets upset. At this point, timeout is much more about having to reflect on the fact that my mother's not happy because I have violated societal norms. This is where time in, as Dr. Greenspan discussed in the book Engaging Autism, can be really helpful. We reviewed some of these concepts a few posts ago, linked to at the blog post. Behavioral compliance. We have talked in past blog posts about the differences between a developmental approach and a behavioral approach to children, and what we may see as problematic behavior. Development happens. If we work to move our children up developmentally in the context of a safe, warm, and nurturing relationship as discussed regularly at Affect Autism, behavior adjusts itself accordingly. Compliance does not guarantee appropriate behavior. If a child does not, quote, sign the social contract, unquote, as Dr. Tippy says, then what happens when you are not around to ensure compliance? We have greater aspirations for our kids. We want the child to intrinsically be motivated to behave in socially appropriate ways. This only happens with appropriate development, he insists. Tricks will backfire. It's easy for parents to grab onto tricks here and there to help them with their children, but development takes time. It isn't easy, and if anyone knows it, we do. Troubling or inappropriate behavior takes its toll on parents. But using tricks like threats and punishment to gain compliance only backfires. It is hard work to facilitate healthy development. It is never an easy fix. Respecting autism. Respecting autism is all about being connected. What is your child interested in? What is going on here? What brings your child joy and why? When we look at a child through a different lens, as Dr. Neufeld talks about, our perspective completely changes. Our child is more than a collection of their behaviors. Please read Dr. Tippy's book with Dr. Stanley Greenspan called Respecting Autism for specific case studies of how his team applies the DIRFloortime approach at the Rebecca School in New York City. Dr. Joshua Fader of the DIRFloortime Coalition of California puts it this way, quote, "Children are human with motivations and desires. We want to tap into their emotionally meaningful experiences, joining them in their world, so that we can entice them in to join ours, so that when they respond to our requests, it's from mutual caring. Compliance is what prisons expect of prisoners, relying on threat and leaving the person unable to move forward," unquote. Even the abstract child can retreat. Being a child who is abstract says nothing of situational variation. Just like us when we're upset or dysregulated, our child can also retreat from abstraction. We fall developmentally in moments where we lose emotional control or our ability to stay self-regulated across people or situations. Even adults who can function at more complex developmental capacities can have emotionally catastrophic reactions to certain events, people, or situations. This is sensible, and this is human nature. As Dr. Tippy points out, you wouldn't treat someone the same way the day their mother died as when they win the lottery. People get simplistic with kids with neurological developmental differences, he says. It's not true that once you conquer something, you have finished with it. People are always moving up and down developmentally. So we wouldn't want to have the same expectations or set limits in the same way with an abstract child if they are not abstract in that moment. That doesn't work with someone who is dysregulated in the moment, Dr. Tippy explains. Hopefully you found this blog post helpful in understanding how to focus on development rather than behavior when setting limits, and understand that all of us can have capacities that are at a higher capacity than where we behave in any one particular moment in time. Next time, we'll talk about moving up and down developmentally. Until next time, here's to choosing play and experiencing joy every day.